Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Naruto volume review. I've called this series Airspeed Reads Naruto. So this is going to be the second video, and I'm going to be reviewing volume 2, which is called The Worst Client. And this volume features 10 chapters, obviously because the first chapter of Naruto is actually a really long kind of chapter. It's like 50 or something pages. So this one has a few more. The chapters that we have are You Failed, The Worst Client, Target Number 2, Going Ashore, Game Over, Ninja, The Secret Plan, Return of the Sharingan, Who Are You, and Preparations for Battle. It's chapters 8 to 17, and the events it covers are the second half of the Bell Test and the start of the Land of Waves story arc, right up until basically what happens at the end. It's Zabuza is assumed dead, though we find out that Haku has saved him. Kakashi is aware that Zabuza has kind of faked his own death to get away, so he uses the time where Zabuza is going to be recovering, he's recovering from using his Sharingan, to start his team's training in chakra control by climbing trees. Literally, the cliffhanger ending for this volume is we're going to climb trees to help you build up your chakra control. It's definitely doesn't have the same ring of the you'll never be shinobis ever at the end of volume 1, but it's an ending, setting up, there must be some unusual training with trees going on here, but yeah, so overall I think the volume covers some interesting ground. I think the second half of the Bell Test is, I think, one of the most memorable moments in Naruto. It's definitely referred back to a lot, especially with regards to Kakashi and us finding out where he got that kind of idealism from, where he got that exact line from, and why he says it to the team. And really, in many ways, this is Kakashi's volume. This is the introduction of him and getting to know him a lot better now that he's not just the kind of evil teacher who doesn't want the students to do that well that he kind of came across as in the first volume. So you see how powerful he is, which is really cool because, as I said before, overall my absolute favorite character, and it's this is when it started, basically the start of this arc, the end of the Bell Test. It just really shows you how interesting and unique of a character he is. And then when you get into the Land of Waves, you see him leading the mission, taking command when he needs to, but also letting the team do stuff when they need to. But I think an important thing is also just that obviously the mission develops from being an initial C rank mission into a B rank mission, and for him to kind of take command when Zabuza kind of arrives and then get captured, and he's like, no, you guys run away, it doesn't matter what happens to me, you guys just get away, complete the mission. He's willing to kind of sacrifice himself for them. But I suppose he's very surprised when it turns out that they, at least Naruto and Sasuke, are skilled enough to come up with some sort of a plan to at least get him out and free and back into the action. So he had some hope for them, but it's a volume that really shows that our characters here are have a lot more potential than maybe even Kakashi expected. So definitely some impressive battle scenes, definitely Naruto and Sasuke versus Zabuza, that little sequence, and then the two times that Kakashi and Zabuza face off are also really, really well done. But getting into some specific talking points and discussing them, I think that the end of the Bell Test is a really interesting way to start this volume. I suppose an interesting way to end the last one, in that almost immediately he's willing to give them another chance, but it's not until after he basically gives them a pretty big lecture about teamwork and just the fact that they're so unaware of this. Why are you put in a squad of 3? Why do you think I'm so annoyed at you and that you can't be shinobi anymore? Teamwork. And I like how he points out to each of them individually what they did wrong, what they specifically did that showed that they didn't have teamwork. With Sakura, it was that she only wanted to help Sasuke, but throughout the whole exercise, she didn't know where he was. Whereas she saw Naruto fighting Kakashi right there, and she didn't do anything to help him. So her favoring one teammate over the other is not the best thing. um, Sasuke basically decided that he was going to wait for the right moment and take Kakashi on himself because he thought that the other two would just slow him down and that he's so much better than them. He's good enough to fight Kakashi one-on-one. So, a little bit of arrogance and not trusting his teammates. Whereas Naruto, basically, Kakashi explains that Naruto, the mistake he made was doing the job of all three of his teammates by himself. Not necessarily because Naruto was being arrogant and thought he could do it one-on-one. He was doing what the Kakashi told him to do, take the bells, and he's just like, what's the point in hiding? I'm just gonna attack you and try and take them straight away. And with Naruto, I think based on Volume 1, you get the impression that it's not that he in any way was against working with his other teammates. He's just so used to kind of being alone and not having people to look out for him and help him and be teammates that he was just like, Sakura doesn't really like me all that much, I know that. Sasuke doesn't seem to like anyone. Why am I going to rely on them? I'll just do it myself. It's the contrast between, I suppose, Sasuke and Naruto here, that with Sasuke it came from a kind of place of selfishness, whereas with Naruto it's just like he doesn't really know what it is to work with others, so him learning about this is a big thing, and you can see how emotional he gets at Kakashi at the end when he says that they pass because they help Naruto to eat. They give up some of their food even if it goes against the rules that he created. Naruto's just like, wow, that's really powerful stuff there that you just said, Master or Sensei. It's really well done. The only noticeable thing that I noticed that was very different than the anime is just the build up to Sasuke offering his food to Naruto. In the anime it felt like they kind of built up to it for a minute or two, whereas here it's literally just 2 or 3 panels. It's just it's very quick the way that it's just Naruto's just hey, I can go without lunch, no problem. Stomach rumbles, Sasuke hands it to him. It's literally just that the one page is no question whatsoever. It's actually quite interesting the way the manga does it compared to the anime because it makes Sasuke seem a lot more reluctant, but kind of okay, I'll do this in the anime. Whereas with this, it makes him seem like he's a lot more eager to be part of the team, even though you just assume that he's kind of got his pride kind of wounded a bit by how quickly kind of Kakashi beat him and how relatively easy it was for Kakashi, and he realizes he needs his teammates to be able to succeed effectively, so he offers his food first before Sakura even does, and then Sakura also agrees. And the fact that this is what causes them to pass the test is really interesting. Just the fact that the whole time Kakashi ultimately didn't really seem to care about how skilled they were. I think ultimately he was a little bit impressed with Naruto's Shadow Clone Jutsu. He was impressed with how skilled Sasuke is, but all he wanted was just a team that could work together, that really understood that the key part of being a team is just caring for your other teammates and being willing to kind of put yourself on the line for them. And that's all he really wanted from them. So the whole setup of Iruka finding out from the third Hokage that Kakashi's never passed anyone, he's never trained anyone because none of them are good enough for him. So when they pass, it's just oh, that shows an interesting thing. They're fairly young kids, they're 12 years old, so them teaching this really big thing about life and death, putting yourself on the line, it's a pretty big thing. And obviously you get the really important line that is important for Kakashi, his backstory with Obito and stuff like that. You get a reference to Obito, even though you don't get the name, just in this first chapter with him mentioning the kind of monument with the names on it, and Naruto thinking that he wants to be on that too, because that's where all the heroes are, but him finding out that they're all the heroes who died in the line of duty, and this is kind of a thing that his friend used to say. Though we don't get that revealed just now. It seems to be this is Kakashi's thing, though we don't know right now how different he used to be. The line the way they translate it for the edition that I have is, in a ninja's world, those who violate the rules and fail to follow orders are lower than garbage. However, those who do not care for and support their fellows are even lower than that. It's a little wordy, but it still gets across the basic idea of what I consider to be the superior kind of like way of saying it. That's a bit more like punchy and like to the point, and that's um, those who break the rules are scum. But those who abandon their friends are worse than scum. It's just, it feels like less words gets across the exact same point rather than lower than garbage. Even lower than that. It's like they just didn't want to use the word scum, which, is, you can sort of understand. It's a pretty harsh word, but I think it fit the whole point here that that's all he cared about. That's why he was so harsh on everyone else who potentially he was going to train. But the first chapter aside, the whole other 9 chapters in this volume are the start of the Land of Waves arc and the team coming together for their first mission, which initially is just meant to be some random D rank mission babysitting something, but Naruto basically forces them into a position where they have to go on a C rank mission to test them a little bit more. But it further develops from that into a B rank mission because the worst client of the volume title, Tazuna, actually lied about the seriousness of who was trying to who he needed to be protected from, and it's actually a B rank mission. So they're kind of in over their heads, 3 pretty new genin and 1 very powerful jonin, but still it's not ideal. But ultimately Kakashi agrees to go ahead with it because he feels sympathetic towards Tazuna's cause. And Tazuna is an interesting character. Obviously, as I said, he's the title of the volume. Initially, you just get this impression that he's a kind of rude, kind of drunk old man, but he has this important role to fulfill in terms of building this bridge. And it's only really when the backstory comes out and you find out about Gato and what he's done to the Land of Waves, and that he's basically just arrived in there, taken it over, and all he cares about is really money and basically profiting off these people. And they present this idea of the bridge and why the bridge builder is so important, because the Land of Waves is basically an island that now Gato's in charge. He basically limits everything coming in, so everyone has to go through him to kind of get what they need. Whereas if they had a bridge to the mainland, they could basically do it themselves. They just leave on the bridge and they can open up trade with other places themselves and kind of bypass Gato. So it straight away it's an interesting dynamic. The only slightly kind of odd thing for me is just that in the grand scheme of Naruto, Gato as a character feels kind of out of place, that he's just a relatively modern sounding businessman. Like, he wears a suit, he acts the way kind of those typical anime kind of businessman characters act. Whereas to me it would fit a little bit better if he was in a little bit more traditional clothing, that he was just like a really powerful like merchant or something like that, rather than businessman who has like all these navy contracts and stuff like that. It's just like, when do we ever get mentioned to like navy and stuff like that in the naval ships and stuff like that in the Naruto world? We don't really even see that many like boats in the grand scheme of things as well. Just not a huge problem, but you can sort of tell it's the first couple of volumes, and some of the new characters he's introducing don't necessarily fit. Gato is one of the few that just kind of seem a little out of place. But after that, the main thing in the rest of the volume is basically like the 3 or 4 action set pieces that happen and what happens in relation to them. So they're attacked very early on when they leave the village by 2 hidden mist ninjas. And the main thing here is just that Sakura and Sasuke were actually on the ball. Like, the second the attack happened, they were in position. Sakura was putting herself on the line to protect Tazuna, and then Sasuke took the lead and was actively fighting the ninjas, no problem. He wasn't scared at all. Whereas Naruto froze up and was like in danger of being pretty badly hurt until Kakashi showed him, and even then he got poisoned by by the cut from the poisoned knife or blade or whatever it was. And I like that the result of this is ultimately that Naruto decides that he doesn't want to ever be in a position like that again. He won't ever back down like that from a fight and be scared, and that he promises on the blood of this wound that like was this very kind of dishonorable thing he did, that he will fulfill this mission, he'll protect Tazuna, and he'll be a better ninja from here on out. And they played it up a little bit for humor at the very end, like, that was really cool, Naruto, what you just did, but you're bleeding like really badly. You just stabbed yourself in the hand to cure the poison. Um, but it does build up to a kind of other kind of world building type moment that like, wait, Naruto can heal really quickly, and Kakashi mentions it's because of the nine-tailed fox. So that was a cool reveal because Volume 1, even though they mentioned specifically that the nine-tailed fox is sealed with inside Naruto, they didn't mention a lot about what that like means for him in terms of like how does that affect him for the most part. They kind of vaguely mentioned this idea that like the scroll that he stole, if he used it in a certain way, he could have unleashed the Nine Tails, but they kind of left it at that. Like there was no real obvious hint as like Naruto and the Nine Tails giving him any sort of power in the first volume. But here we see that it seems to heal him quicker, which is interesting. Um, before I get into the other kind of action scenes, I'll actually mention some of the kind of info kind of stuff that they do in these chapters. It's really interesting because there's like a couple of times that they do it to just explain certain things about how the world of Naruto works. And here's one of the kind of more basic ones where they just go over the different ranks of ninja and stuff like that. It's just a cool thing to know the names, like Iruka's a Chunin, Kakashi's a Jonin, the Hokage obviously is a Hokage, which means leader, and just establish the kind of order of things, the way they work, and the different ranks of mission and which type of ninja is put on each. Look at this page and the amount of dialogue on it. That is insane. But it's all pretty good information. Like there's a little bit more there because they kind of fill it in with like, okay, the name of the village is like Konahagure, and village hidden in the leaves. The Hokage is also called Fire Shadow and stuff like that. It's just a interesting thing as they establish the 5 main kind of villages, the kind of great ninja villages, the 5 Kage, that the big villages are the only ones allowed to have someone called a Kage, and then establish the relationship between some of the villages and how that works, that they do these missions and are paid for that by the people who hire them for the missions. Just establishing how this ninja world actually works. The other one is just the little info thing that they go into explaining Naruto's kind of plan about how he did the whole shadow clone jutsu, transformation jutsu thing with the shuriken. And then the last bit is Sakura explaining how chakra works, which is a little bit differently from where they do it in the anime, because Konohamaru initially explains it to Naruto for like a joke, basically, that Konohamaru knows it, but Naruto doesn't. On this page, I think Sakura does do it at this point in more depth in the anime as well, but it's just interesting that they mention chakra much earlier on in the anime than they do here. But yeah, just establishing the whole body and mind, energy, the signs, that's how you do ninjutsu, and stuff like that. But just a lot of nice information there. I always like them establishing the way the world works and make it very clear to you. And the way they do it here is kind of fun. You have Sakura basically opening up this kind of scroll she has on her that kind of explains it to the audience, and stuff like that. And then Kakashi opening up kind of like a map kind of thing to show us. It's just a fun way to do it. The other key moments, of course, are after the 2 random ninjas arrive and they take care of them. Not too long later, they're attacked by Zabuza, who's obviously introduced as the kind of demon of the hidden mist village. And they go into like some pretty crazy backstory establishing that like the other villages, the way they choose their like genin and stuff like that is very different than the Hidden Leaf. They're quite tame with what they do compared to like the Mist Village, where like they basically have the candidates fight 1-on-1 to the death to determine who the ones are to be chosen. But Zabuza's a special case because he killed 100 of his prospective classmates, which is insane. Just establishing that at a really young age, this character killed 100 kids. Basically, he was a kid at the time, but you established how dangerous this guy is going to be. But Kakashi's on the same level as him, so you have like the first battle between really high level ninjas in the series, and like you see them just casually doing these kind of impressive jutsus on each other. The water dragon jutsu, Zabuza traps Kakashi then in the water prison jutsu because Kakashi's a little bit distracted using basically protecting his squad, and then that leads to the kind of Sasuke and Naruto versus Zabuza sequence, which is definitely one of my favorite action sequences of the early kind of parts of Naruto. Just how clever that plan is, like the kind of thing that he used against Kakashi during the Bell test. It's just this multi-layered plan of like clones and transformation, and how Sasuke was involved as well, showing that they actually do team up quite well together. And it was just really impressive that like they knew going in that they weren't gonna like take out the guy with this attack, but that the whole aim of it was just to distract him enough that he would drop the prison jutsu on Kakashi and free him. And I think Kakashi was very impressed with the plan as well. I think he compliments Naruto on like his excellent plan. So that was a really nice thing to have. Just that Naruto's plan was key in kind of solving this conflict. And then once Kakashi's out, he just goes all out on Zabuza, and obviously by this time we had the reveal that under Kakashi's other eye is a Sharingan eye, and we get that explained to us for the first time. The explanation in this is a little bit kind of like, okay, the translation is kind of making this kind of confusing the way you're kind of explaining it. It's not awful, but it's not the best explanation of the Sharingan I've ever seen. Admittedly, like the powers of the Sharingan become very kind of slightly different than they're initially introduced as the series goes on. Initially, it's meant to be here it's basically just established like it allows you to copy other people's jutsu, in that like I think one of the biggest things actually from the entire volume is that it really establishes how well known Kakashi is across the ninja world, how impressive of a ninja he is, that the village that Zabuza comes from, Kakashi is listed in their bingo book, and he has one of like the biggest sections on him because of how kind of notable he is. He's, you know, the copy ninja Kakashi. He's the man who has copied 1,000 ninjutsu. It's just interesting to find out that like one of these characters you've been introduced to has such a legend like across the world. And yeah, just revealing that he has the Sharingan, and then Sasuke kind of coming in here to add an extra layer of kind of detail to this, that like this is meant to be a specific, you know, ocular jutsu that my clan has. So like it makes Sasuke interested in Kakashi, because why does he have it when he's not an Uchiha? You know, he only has it in one eye, though they don't really specify anything about the one eye thing being all that crazy right now. But yeah, just establishing that allows him to copy jutsu, and what he does to Zabuza at the end is like, it's really impressive the way actually the manga does it. That like Zabuza's kind of looking at Kakashi, but he's kind of seeing himself do it, like he's looking in a mirror, which is a cool kind of effect to get across in the manga. Just the fact that he's doing the same jutsu that Zabuza is doing, but he's doing it before him. He's finishing Zabuza's sentences before he can get them out. And it's really putting Zabuza off, that like, oh, I thought I could fight this guy, but he's messing with my mind, and that's kind of making me lose. And obviously before Kakashi can like finish the job, Zabuza takes 2 senbones through the neck. And this was a kind of shocking moment when I actually read this one, because in the anime I remember it being like, oh, whoa, where did that come from? But it wasn't like really like shocking, like, whoa, that was crazy what just happened. Because in the anime he just gets them in the neck, whereas here it goes through his neck. Let me just find the panel. You can see it right there. Like they go through his neck, and I'm just like, whoa! I don't remember that from the anime at all. So that was a pretty cool sequence to see. And obviously they then explain later on the whole idea of these kind of Undertaker kind of ninja who, when shinobi die, they make sure to basically dispose effectively of the bodies of the rogue ninjas from their own village, in case other villages kind of inspect the bodies and find out like little tricks that they had. Like Kakashi gives the example that like, if I was killed, other villages would want to take my Sharingan eye and potentially use that. So that was a cool example to give about that. And just the idea of this new character, this kind of young character as well, they established to be like incredibly powerful, and that annoys Naruto that like this character is about the same age as me, but is like not even anywhere near me in terms of power level. He's so much higher than I am. But just the mystery of like, he introduces himself fairly effectively, and Kakashi believes him. But then later on, he kind of realizes that, oh, we've been tricked. Zabuza's not actually dead. That was just a really desperate way to escape from being killed. And then just establishing that, like, okay, when Kakashi uses his Sharingan, especially when he uses it a lot, he becomes so tired that he's basically out of action for a week. But they also established that Zabuza recovering from this near-death experience is also going to take about a week to recover. So you kind of set up this break before the other fight. They fight again, basically, which was interesting. It's a little weird, that they pause, just like Kakashi's just like, yeah, we're going to train now. And they don't really focus on exactly what they're going to do in regards to, are they going to help build the bridge? When is that actually going to happen? What exactly is Gato doing in the town? And stuff like that. But towards the end, we're introduced to, obviously, Tazuna's family. And the important, I suppose one of the important characters is Inari, we're introduced to here, who seems very against Naruto because Naruto's talking about being a hero and stuff like that. And Inari kind of mentions that there are no heroes. No one can defeat Gato. He's too powerful. You'll just be like killed. There's no point in even trying. And he's very negative while Naruto is very optimistic. And Naruto's like infuriated by this kid just coming out of nowhere saying that you'll fail. And later on, he obviously discovers Inari crying, looking at this picture of his father. And even though we don't get the explanation just now, it's kind of clear that the father is dead. And you can infer that that's because of Gato had him killed. And to Inari, his father was the hero that kind of failed. And that kind of brought down his whole view of heroes and stuff like that. So an interesting dynamic. And they're clearly setting up that Naruto will be the one to renew Inari's faith in heroes and stuff like that. So it's a nice little thing set up towards the end, but absolutely the highlight of this volume is the various fight scenes that happen, and also, in addition to that, the information stuff that we get about how the ninja world works is good to get at this point in time. So I'm going to end the video with my usual awards type things. My favorite character from this volume was Kakashi. Really interesting to see him transition from being somewhat of an antagonistic character in terms of like failing our main characters initially, and then immediately transforming here into a character you really care about. He has an interesting way in terms of how he views things, what he sees as a good ninja, someone who cares about the people around them, more so than the rules themselves. That was nice to know. And then the line he says to his squad mates that like, I'll never ever let one of my comrades die. That was a really like powerful line. And just a big transformation from him from being just like, okay, like cool, but kind of like slightly antagonistic character to being just like, he's one of the crew, bring him on board, one of my favorites immediately. So, and then like establishing how amazing he is with his Sharingan Eye, going up against Zabuza, establishing his reputation. Really cool stuff with Kakashi in this volume. My favorite quote from the volume is the one I mentioned earlier on. The manga here specifically mentions it as, in a ninja's world, those who violate the rules and fail to follow orders are lower than garbage. However, those who do not care for and support their fellows are even lower than that. Very important line for Kakashi that obviously gets explained, delved into a lot more as we go on. My favorite piece of art or panel from the volume is this one from later on in the volume, but it's this whole page, full page of Naruto, just as he's got his headband back from Zabuza, basically just he's basically, his confidence is renewed. He's not going to back down, even up against the odds, and he's basically saying that I'm going to show you my school of ninjutsu here, as he starts to go into his plan. I just think it's a really notable kind of thing, because you really see how determined he is, and it really impresses everyone around him that he is so set on doing this despite how scared he was just like moments ago in the last battle. So yeah, that's where I'm going to end the video. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were on the video. on the review on this volume. I will probably have another volume review out on over the weekend, or at least one more during the week. And then, as I said before, the plan for these will be probably to do. Realistically, I'll probably be doing 2 a week. Most weeks, it could go down to 1. It could go up depending on what other videos I'll be doing during the week. So that's a basic idea of the schedule. But other than that, thanks for watching this video, and bye.